Joe was a full-time IT professional working in corporate, climbing the ladder, doing everything right. But in 2020, everything changed. A single email flipped his world upside down.
This is the moment I'm going to lose my job.
It wasn't just a layoff, it was the beginning of something entirely new.
That's exactly what I need to do. One of my friends of over 20 years said, "You look the happiest you've ever looked in a very long time."
In just 11 months, Joe grew his followers to over 150,000, which was more than he had in the past 6 years combined.
I came across Ben Hargreaves, saw his viral video that made him blow up, and I thought,
In this episode of the Content Era podcast, Joe shares with us how he balances part-time content creation with a full-time remote job, while documenting the unfiltered reality of his photography journey and life as a new dad.
You'll learn exactly how he built a loyal community and how you can do the same to create content with purpose, passion, and freedom with your personal brand.
All right, welcome, Joe. We're really excited to have you. Welcome to the Content Era podcast, the podcast by creative entrepreneurs for creative entrepreneurs, where we interview people like you, successful entrepreneurs that have started their content creation journey online, have built something out of it, and here to share your story and the things that you've implemented throughout your journey to get to where you are today. So thanks so much for joining us today.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I want to go back to 2020. I know that was a turning point for you when you were laid off from your job, correct?
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting time.
Yeah, I bet. And I want to know like how this experience pushed you to dive into content creation and take it more seriously, and what sort of mindset shifts you had to undergo during this time.
Well, I've always wanted to be a content creator of some kind. Ever since high school, I've always had an interest in doing some sort of creative field and just do something with my hands or make something out of nothing. But I also always wanted to be a business owner. So when I went into college, I got a degree in business management and I started working for the startup Uber at the time. And I worked through getting promotions and stuff like that. I was like, okay, each promotion, it's just a little bit more money for me to start investing in the things that I want to do. And come 2020, when we had to go work from home, I saw the writing on the wall and I thought that there's something bad is going to happen. I had no idea what that was, but I knew that I needed to prepare. So I started consuming a lot of financial information. I'm a huge fan of Graham Stephan. And more recently, last few years, I've also been listening to Bigger Pockets Money. So as a financial geek going into school, I was like, okay, I need to stockpile cash away. I need to stockpile my investments during this time. And sure enough, after about a month and a half of working from home, the CEO came out and said, like, we'll be fine. We'll get through this. We've got billions of dollars of unrestricted cash available to us to keep us afloat. But then just 2 weeks later, I woke up and I got a email and a notification on my calendar for an HR meeting. And I thought to myself, this is that moment. This is the moment I'm going to lose my job. And so when I hopped on that call, there was just one lone HR representative just sitting there. You just see the look on her face, like, I know what you're about to do. And I was part of the first round of layoffs, 3,700 people. And then a few weeks later, they ended up laying off over 12,000 people across the entire world.
Whoa.
Wow.
So it was definitely a pivotal moment for me because at the time, my wife, we were dating at the time, she was a nurse in the ICU. And she was working 60-hour weeks, and I was working a job I didn't really like. So I been trying to move up in the ranks of Uber and trying to get into a new location. But all that fell apart when the pandemic hit. So it was more of this blessing in disguise, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was just angry and I was like, why did this happen to me? Why am I being punished for working as hard as I could to pursue something that I don't even know if I want? So then I started picking up my camera more because I haven't picked it up a whole lot recently. And I started taking more photos of my friends' cars, my car. I was doing more video work. And one of my friends of over 20 years said, "You look the happiest you've ever looked in a very long time. And I was unemployed. Like there's no reason for me to be happy because I had no job, but I had cash to sit on. They gave me a nice package. I was like, I'm going to just take some time off. I'm going to do some creative work. And that's when I really realized that I want to do this more. But reality set in and I had to look for a new job. So that's been a few years now. And more recently, I've had some more pivotal moments, but that's what really got me started.
Wow.
Wow, what an experience.
Blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you've done some work for Uber in the past, and it's a great company. It's just they didn't have a home for me long term. And so after I left there, I was like, you know what? I was actually more scared going back than I was to lose my job.
Do you think that you would have eventually quit anyways, or if the pandemic didn't happen and if it, the circumstances didn't turn out that way?
Yeah, I had the plan when I left college. I was like, I don't want to work a long-term career corporate job. I want to take the money that I earned from my career and put it into something that I am passionate about, that business, whatever it were to be. And so I looked at my time at Uber as like my one and only corporate job. So that's why I tried really hard to work my way up, because with it being a tech startup, they gave you great potential. They gave you great benefits. Like I would be just fine and I would be comfortable. But yeah, that was supposed to be my only job.
Got it.
Wow. What a way to jumpstart that journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like after that, what were your first steps? You just got laid off. Like what did you do?
I took a step back and I took some time off. Like I said, my wife, Jackie, when we were dating, she was an ICU nurse, and I just stayed back and supported her as much as I could while she was dealing with the pandemic. We couldn't see each other for months because of quarantine. And I just wanted to reevaluate my trajectory of my career. I luckily stockpiled enough emergency savings and enough investments to keep me secure for a year. So I definitely had time. And luckily at that point, the government was still giving a larger benefit for unemployment. So I got the tail end of that because I was still employed for like a month, and then they officially made me unemployed. So for that whole month, I couldn't do anything. So I was still getting benefits, still getting pay. They gave me a great severance package that would have set me up for another 6 months. So I had a year and a half of spare time. But I decided that after 3 months of taking time off, getting my bearings and understanding what I want to do, it was time for me to just go back to work. So I picked up a part-time job that I hated dreadfully. It was a warehouse job, but it was a job. And then I ironically drove Uber Eats on the side to make a little extra cash. And it was funny because I was never allowed to drive on the Uber platform when I was an employee. It was a conflict of interest for them. So I finally got to experience the other side.
Right, yeah.
Which do you prefer?
That must have been very unique.
Yeah. I actually preferred doing the food delivery. So what's really funny is it was still quarantine, still like you had to wear a mask and everything. And I kind of really liked how anonymous I was. And, being the face of Uber, like I ran the entire state. I was a manager. I did driver support. So I was talking to people every single day. But when I was a food delivery driver, nobody knew who I was. And I actually really liked it. I just went in, had my mask on, grabbed the food, left.
So complete 180.
Yeah, it was complete 180. One, everybody really knew who I was and despised me. And then the other one was nobody knew who the heck I was, and I could do whatever I want. And it felt great.
Nice. Yeah, that newfound freedom must have been sweet. Hey, so you have a brother named Tony, is that right? Okay, so we did a little research, and growing up, you and your brother Tony were taught the value of hard work. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So how has that upbringing influenced your approach to building your content creation business now, especially as you juggle multiple responsibilities, being a new father, having a job on the side, and all those things?
So, short story, my dad's side of the family immigrated from Italy back in the early 1900s. And they did it because the job market wasn't great in Europe at the time. But they didn't really have a lot of skill. They were blue-collar workers, and 3 of the oldest brothers went to work in the steel mills of Cleveland to put the youngest through college to be a lawyer.
Wow.
And ever since then, my dad's entire side of the family has been full of entrepreneurs. One of them ran a sub shop in New York, and they were bootleggers. My family has ties to, the Sicilian mafia, and when they came over, they liked to do the bootlegging for a little time. But that's a little bit more extended. My direct family was more of, I want to start a business. I want to work the job I want to work. And so my grandfather owned a business where they rented chairs and tables for events, but it was his entire career and he retired happily. My grandmother was a school teacher for second graders, and they had the flexibility to do whatever they want. All my uncles are either a corporate lawyer or a mechanical engineer that has his own practice, and he travels the world building massive machines. And then my dad really settled into the sales side, but he also loved the hustle and grind of setting himself up financially to be secure for the rest of his life. Like my parents have no debt, and it's because they worked their hardest when they were young to be able to secure themselves for the future. And they taught us that if we want something, we have to work for it. And, like we were given a $1,500 car to drive one day a week to school. And if we want to drive any more than that, had to get a job to pay for gas. And so we weren't just handed opportunities. We were given the opportunity to take action. And I think that is what really set us apart from other kids, because we had hand-me-down clothes. We ate food from Aldi because it was cheap. We drove a cheap car that was just a beater. Like we didn't thrive on some magical entity that just gave us stuff. We worked really hard for it, and that has just carried us all the way through adulthood.
So it's been instilled in you since childhood.
Absolutely. I mean, if I see something that I know I can do, I'd rather do it myself than hire somebody else to do it.
Well, that could be a good thing and a bad thing sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll dive deeper into that very thing. I think it's a really important thing when it comes to delegating and growing a business, which I'm very curious about. But just to keep it on this lessons from your family, I think extremely valuable lessons. And in an instant gratification society nowadays, that really is invaluable teachings for basically any entrepreneur. To really work hard, right? To really work hard for what you want. If you see something that you want, put it into action, work towards it, because that's nothing else is going to be handed to you.
I agree.
And that's something that is actually very evident in your content. So I want to talk about your content, and you've grown your Instagram following from 390 to over 150,000 followers in just 11 months. You've also started growing your TikTok and your YouTube as additional platforms as well. So I'm curious what strategies you found the most effective in achieving this growth, stepping into a content creator role, and how did you maintain that consistency throughout that period?
So what I do is nothing special. POV content has been done by other photographers, and I've seen them do it on YouTube. And I thought to myself, like, this just seems like a very simple, easy thing to do. And so when I actually bought my GoPros for my honeymoon, it wasn't even for this. I just wanted to document our hikes at Zion National Park. And I was like, it was great. And I had no idea how to work it. And I was like, okay, I got these settings all screwed up and stuff. But I came across Ben Hargreaves, or as you know, Life Through Optics, during my time on my honeymoon. So I had just finished dumping all my footage, and I saw this viral video that made him blow up. And I thought, that seems like a very easy, replicable thing that I could do. So it took a while to get to that point. There's a lot of backstory behind that, but I started doing it when I bought my new camera. I haven't upgraded my camera in years, and I was like, you know what? This is my second time out with this camera. My GoPro was just sitting in my bag because I took it with me just in case. And when I put it on and I started recording and I went to edit it later, I was like, oh, this is so easy. Like, I talk to myself all the time. It's just a natural thing that comes to me. Working in tech, there's this phrase called rubber duck coding. And if you've never heard of it, it's just super simple. Engineers would put a rubber duck on their desk, and whenever they would have an impasse, they would talk to the duck like they were a person. And it would, yeah, it would help them get to this aha moment of like, oh, that's exactly what I need to do. And it was a strategy that people used because they felt weird talking to themselves. So when you have something else to talk to, it's just easier. So my camera is my rubber duck. And I talk to myself all the time when I'm on photo shoots. I have conversations with people all the time on photo shoots. There's no scripting. It's just pure raw conversation. And when you pair that with a very easy editing style, it's just, I can do it every single day. Like I can make content for weeks on end with just 2 days of shooting. I don't have to stress myself over it.
That's amazing. That really stresses the importance of having a sustainable and easy workflow and just a style of content and format that really like works with your lifestyle and like what you're already doing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I go out on Saturdays. I only shoot on Saturdays. Every client I work with, I let them know, hey, Saturday is my shooting day. I do 1 to 2 photo shoots every weekend, and then Sunday's my editing day. Now, I would like to stay ahead on editing, but things get in the way. The nice thing about it is, though, is that because the workflow is so simple that the longest that I have to spend on anything is actually editing the photos. Just because that's the actual craft that I'm showing. The video itself, I don't do anything special. I don't do any audio processing or color grading. I just cut it all up and put the captions on, and I push it forward.
Right. Yeah. Would you say your style is more documentary than, like creating new videos?
Yeah, I would say it's documenting. And what I found is a lot of people thoroughly enjoy the documentation of a process.
Yes.
So again, coming from my work background, SOP, standard operating procedure, that is probably one of the easiest things that people realize they don't have that they can turn into content. So it's like you have these videos where people will say, get ready with me. That is an SOP. Like, how do you get ready for your day? You do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
But that's why that kind of content worked so well. And so my content is similar to that. Like, this is what I do when I'm at a photo shoot. These are kind of angles I get. These are the kind of conversations I have. And then when I come home, this is the process of me offloading and editing and stuff like that. All of that documentation is massively powerful, and people want to know how to do these things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Documenting the process and sharing it. And it makes for really authentic content because in some of your videos, there's some like hilarious moments. There's some moments where like cops come to you and you're kind of just like, whoa, and you got to talk to them, which makes for really exciting content that you can't script.
Yeah.
I love that about your content.
Yeah, thank you. And the cop interactions, I've only had 4 of them. And
only,
yeah. There was a 5th one, but I wasn't recording, so it was whatever. But all these interactions, even though there's a camera strapped to my head, like that's how I normally talk to people. And one of the things I really disliked years and years ago when I tried doing YouTube for the first time was I felt so disingenuine about my content. I tried to replicate what other people were doing because I saw that it was successful, but then I realized like these people have been doing it for years. I can't just jump right in right away and be like them.
Yeah.
And plus, being like them means I'm less like me, and I like me more. So I
love that.
Yeah, those conversations with the cops or with the security guards or the business owners, whenever those conversations happen, like I'm just like, all right, here we go. Let's see what happens. And it just happens.
Yeah, it's 100% authentic, not scripted at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, gotta love yourself first, right? Gotta believe in yourself first. So if you try to copy someone too much, I don't think it's ever gonna work out. Now, success leaves clues, as one of our mentors says, but yeah, it's never a good idea to copy exactly because it's just never gonna feel as genuine as, and you're also not gonna learn the same way, right? You learn by like messing up, by failing. So if you don't go through that initial stage, then I think you're going to have a harder time in the long run.
I mean, I feel like for me, that's what held me back for the longest time. When I spent 4 years traveling after university, and I had my camera and I had a drone. And my number one bottleneck was putting it together, because I just always tried. It wasn't so like intentional, but it was almost like a subconscious expectation that my content had to turn out like Lost LeBlanc or these big travel YouTubers. I had this like judgment of like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And it was so hard to actually progress in creating travel vlogs, because there was always this invisible barrier that I put in front of myself, that I had to be like somebody else. And, you know, years later, 32 years old, I feel like fully detached from that now. And it just took a long time. I think a lesson that I would have liked to have learned way earlier on. And I think a valuable one for everyone watching this video is just to like, just be yourself.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it or not, I was an introvert growing up. And if I ever spoke my mind, people were just like, just shut up. Nobody cares. And it was just kind of, you know, through the bullying that I dealt with throughout school and dealing with depression and anxiety on my entire life, like nobody wanted anything to do with me. So I thought to myself, well, just stay in my lane and just get out while I can. And, you know, maybe eventually I'll do something. But during college, I learned how to stop being like what everybody else wanted me to be, and started learning how to be more myself and break out of that shell. And I think that's what a lot of people deal with, especially when it comes to content creation. It's like they keep to themselves. They're like, who would want to listen to me? I'm not interesting. But I had to really shift my mindset, and instead of saying, no, that can't be me, I started saying to myself, why not me? Like, why can't I do it if these people can?
Yeah,
well
exactly. So in your recent newsletter, you have a newsletter, right? What's it called?
It's called Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
I love that. So in your recent newsletter called Friday, you mentioned posting 14 times a week across various platforms. How do you manage this level of consistency, and what tips would you give creators struggling to stay consistent?
The way that I manage it is pretty straightforward. So when I do a photo shoot, in my mind, I know that an hour long to an hour and a half long photo shoot, I'll get at least 5 days worth of video and 5 days worth of photos. So I do one reel and then one carousel every single day. And what the reel does is it attracts those people into your page, and I'm showcasing on there my process, my photos pop up on screen and stuff. But then the carousel is for the people who already follow me. So that strategy in of itself has been easy to replicate over and over again, because I'm already editing the photos for the video anyways. So might as well show off the actual work itself to the people who do follow me. Excuse me.
Yeah.
The way that I stay consistent is that whenever I'm on a photo shoot, I try to think to myself, like, what is something that I can share that's valuable to people? Or what is it that I can talk about? And I usually try to give myself 3 to 5 talking points every single photo shoot to think like, okay, well, I got a minute to film something here. And when I have that mental note, I come back home and I just chop it up. And I try to do that as quickly as I can, so that way it's still fresh in memory. But that's why I give myself Sunday as my editing day, because then it's still fresh in my mind. And I even write down, if I need to, what points in this video do I need to chop up. It's not easy to be consistent. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely stressful, but I have an unfair advantage where I work from home. So when I'm at home, if I'm working my regular job and I get a break, I can work a little bit on my editing, and I can write a little bit on my newsletter. I can do these other things and not completely neglect my job. And then once work is over, I don't have to commute. I'm already here, so I can just continue my editing. And that's probably my superpower is being able to work remotely.
Yeah. That's definitely a bonus for sure.
Do you use any tools to help you with that workflow, like something like AI or Descript, or what's your workflow like in order to be consistent? Because you say like you take some notes of what talking points you have, but how do you like pick up on those notes in post?
So I use the AI transcripting in Adobe Premiere. And it's probably a very undervalued tool, especially when you have clean, clear audio. You can pick up a word. So sometimes I do this weird thing where I'll say a trigger word, and that tells editing version me to search for that word. And so when I search for that word, it'll take me to the point where I want to cut it. and then I cut it from there.
So smart.
Yeah, it saves a lot because like on GoPro, you can mark it. Like if you have the app open, you can click a marker tool and you can see that, but you can only see in GoPro software. So my workaround was I'm going to say a trigger word, like maybe I'm going to say apple or something. Like when am I ever saying the word apple? Just so then when I use that trigger word, I can search it, and when you search it, you can see there's 5 points where I've said this word, and then I can just chop it up from there.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's really sweet.
that's a nice little trick that I
Yeah.
think people can take away for sure.
So you just do it all in Premiere?
Yeah, all my work
transcribe
is
it?
done in Premiere. I use, like I said, the AI transcripting, and then for photo editing, my presets that I have designed, I have it set up to where my colors are exactly the way I want them to be, and I've even recently started implementing masking into my presets to where like I'm already going to select the subject, I'm already going to do this gradient, I'm already going to do this thing.
Yeah.
So anything that is pre-saved, if I can limit the amount of time I spend on editing, I'm going to take that opportunity. So recently I've just been using my presets where they have pre-selected areas I want edited a certain way, and then I just do fine-tune adjustments, and that's saved me a ton of time because again, the photo editing process is the longest process.
Yeah.
For sure.
I used to shoot real estate photography and video when I lived in Vancouver. I'd shoot anywhere from 3 to 6 properties a day. So you could imagine it was a lot of media, and my turnaround deliverable time was 24 hours. So for video it was around 48 hours. And I found like what you're saying is so true. Like nailing down your camera settings, like really getting to know your camera and the files that come out of it, and then pairing that with a preset that you know is going to work seamlessly with that. And I found the exact same thing. I went like shooting a house or editing a house went from taking maybe an hour and a half to taking 15 to 20 minutes and having like crispy, like deliverable photos for a client, all with using a really good preset that I had specifically developed, really getting to know my camera and having the SOP, right? Having the process in place to know like step 1 to publish on how everything needs to be done. So it's sweet that you got that down for your type of content.
Yeah, it's great. And that turnaround time sounds stressful.
I know, right?
I've been able to take my turnaround time and shorten it, but I still have like 2 to 3 weeks of a lead time because I usually do everything in chronological order. And I prefer that method over bouncing around a whole lot because it's easier for me to track. But also you see the progression too when you keep it chronological.
Definitely. I also found that I was starting to use a lot of shortcuts that are built into Lightroom, for example, that I didn't really know existed until I had the really high volume of content to deal with, such as flagging, picks, and discarding images, which is with tap of buttons. So my editing just turned into me clicking buttons on my keyboard and progressing through all of the images super, super quick. I don't think I would have learned that if I didn't take that many photos.
That is the method I use. So when I dump my photos, recently I went to a motorsport event and I had over 3,000 photos to cull through. And what I do is I sit there and I use the arrow key to move over and I do pick, decline, pick, decline, pick, decline. And then as I go through and I edit them, I actually rate them on a star level to say, hey, this one's good. I'll do a 4-star if I need to do some denoising or if I need to do some Photoshop work to it. And then I'll rate it a 5-star if it's completed. And then that way, when I go and I filter to pick out my content, I'll filter it by those metrics. The extra step I do, though, is I give a keyword to all my photos. So I select all photos and I give the keyword unassigned. And that means that it's not going to be used for any content at the moment. But then once I identify what video it's going to be for, I'll give it short 1, short 2, short 3. And I'll be able to segment my photos based on what video it goes to. And I replicate that in my files as well. So I know the photos I'm using for today are in this file, and I do that over and over and over again. So that's also how I'm able to track how many days of content I get out of one photo shoot. Some days I get 4 days, other days I get 12. And it's easy for me to categorize it and archive it that way too.
Nice.
Wow. It's really interesting to learn your workflow and the similarities and differences that we have. But
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So I want to talk a bit about your style of your on the video side for your short form content. And I'm really curious. You have a style that really resonates with your audience. At what point did you realize that was the best content for you to create? And how has it been staying true to that? Or how has staying true to your passion help you grow your brand?
When I really realized that the kind of content I do resonates with the right people was actually 3 months into my journey. So in the first 3 months, I had decent growth. It was like a slow burn growth. And I got up to around 3,500 followers at the beginning of October. And I started seeing a decline in engagement and followers and stuff like that. And I thought to myself, that like, what is going on? Like, I'm still enjoying it and I'm still doing it. I just didn't know what was not clicking. Excuse me. During the month of October, there was an endurance race called the Indy 8 Hour here at the Motor Speedway. And when I went there, I ran into this photographer who recognized me. And it was really bizarre. I didn't have my GoPro on. I just got out of the bathroom. I was like, I'm not going to record anything. I'm just going to take pictures because I already got some video. And he saw that my GoPro was on my head and asked me what it was. And I explained to him. And when I took it off, he's like, I know who you are. He recognized me from TikTok, which at the time I only had like 250 followers. And I was like, this is bizarre. Like, how do you know me from this? So we got to talk about like his journey with photography, how his dad got him into it, and his dad did landscape, showed me his work, and we just had this really good conversation, but I didn't record any of it. And so afterwards, I was like, okay, here's what I can do. I can just turn on the GoPro. I can recap the conversation because I also wanted to tie in a conversation I had with my wife when I first started. She believed that I was an influencer. And in that video, I explained, like, when I had gained 500 followers, she started calling me this. And I was like, no. I don't feel like an influencer. I just feel like a guy out here having fun. But I did tell her that if somebody ever recognized me in public, like a complete stranger, I would consider myself a notable person or somebody who has created an impact on others. And so I tied that previous conversation into the experience I just had. And that video was actually my first viral video. And the majority of the people who commented on it were basically appreciative of how genuine the conversation seemed, how my storytelling was really good, and how I looked at myself. Like, I think it's easy for people to look at somebody with a lot of followers and think like, oh, they're just this influencer. And it's like, there are, but I don't like to put myself in that bucket because I feel like there's a difference between those who are just influencing you and those who are actually impacting you in your daily lives. And the stuff that I want to make other people's days better, or I want to help them with their own creative passion. And that's when I really realized that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And so I just started doubling down on it. Any conversation I have with people, if they approach me, they ask me like, hey, what's your profile? Or, hey, what are you working on? And stuff like that. I keep my camera rolling. And, there are some times where I don't, and I just take the camera off and I just have a conversation with them because I can still impact that person that's in front of me. But when I do record those conversations, those tend to do a lot better when you can see the person's genuine reaction, whether I'm showing them my work or they find my profile and they're like, wow, you have a lot of followers, or wow, your work is amazing. People really resonate with that.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing our 30 days of 30 viral content ideas. No, 30 days of
He always
30
gets it wrong.
niches. When we were going through your content, we did that collab. I actually noticed that the content that was performing really, really well was when people were asking you questions. I think it's that off the cuff interaction that keeps you like really genuine when somebody asks you a question and then they realize who you are, and also with your response of like, I'm just a dude shooting. What's up? And then you guys have a really nice chat, and that does pretty well. And some of those have gone viral, like you mentioned. The one that you mentioned, and I remember seeing another one where you were inside of like a large garage that also did really, really well with a few 100,000
Yeah.
views.
Yeah. The video in the garage was actually not my last, my biggest viral video that got 3.2 million plus views.
Right.
And that one, it was actually an event I almost didn't go to. I was like, I'll just go. It's practice. It was the beginning of the car season. Might as well go. When this guy approached me, it was, I think, him and his brother, but the guy, Larry, super nice guy. Just like, hey, I saw that you had all this stuff on you. Like my backpack was on. I was shooting with my camera. I had my GoPro on. He's like, I thought you might have a page because you look like you do this professionally. And when he saw my follower count, which at the time was 35,000, which sounds crazy, like it was only 35,000, but at the time it was just like more than I could ever imagine. When he reacted to my follower count, I got nervous. And I was like, I don't know how to respond. So I just said, thank you. And I've had people comment like, that's not a compliment. I was like, I know it's not, but like in the moment, that's my awkwardness. Like I'm just socially awkward, and you can see it in that video. And I think that genuine reaction really helped drive the metrics on that video. But also, he had blonde hair, and so did his friend. And people thought he looked like Eminem, like 2000s era Eminem.
Yeah.
And I it's like, hey, that's cool because I really loved Eminem growing up. But what people didn't realize is his hair is blonde because he's a swimmer. So I don't know if it's like that and where you guys are from, but here, at least in Indiana, if you win like a championship or something like that, you dye your hair blonde. As it's just a tradition that people do. So the guy's not really blonde, but he looked like Eminem, and I thought it was really funny. And so a lot of people were just blowing up the comments with Eminem gifs, which I think really drove up the engagement. But what really set that video apart from the other ones was that I had hundreds of thousands of profile visits, and then I gained over 69,000 followers from that one video. And I think it's because in that video he talked about like, you must be really good at this. And I was like, I'm not a professional by any means. I just do this for fun. I put it on the internet. He went to my profile, he scrolled through, he saw I was doing it consistently. And the hundreds of thousands of people that did the same thing also saw how consistent I was with my work. And I think I had a conversion rate of about 15%. 15% of people who visited my profile followed me.
Nice.
And it just went for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then finally kind of tapered off. But people really did like seeing the consistency that I had with my content.
Yeah, of course. You have to give people a reason to actually stick around and want to hit the follow button, right? Whenever that opportunity does come up of your reel going viral. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious, what do you think made this particular post or video go viral versus like any of your previous posts?
It was a combination of the genuine interaction, which is the basis of all of these videos I've done very well. But I think it was the comment I made where I wasn't giving myself enough credit, which is a common thing. I'm not a huge fan of all my work, believe it or not. A lot of the work I put out, I don't like, but other people seem to like it. And so I made the comment where it's like, I just do a lot of practice. I show it to the world and people seem to like it.
Yeah.
And he agreed. And he's just like, I think this work is awesome. And as I'm saying that line, a picture comes up on screen. And a lot of people targeted that photo saying, how could you say you're not professional, but show like an immaculate photo at the same time? And so I think people are like expecting for the photo to be garbage. But then when it wasn't garbage, they were like, oh, wait, this guy's serious. Like he genuinely believes that his work's not professional, but it is.
We're our own worst critics.
Yeah, we're our own worst critics, and I'm definitely guilty of that. But I think that kind of tied into the whole conversation, and then they're like, okay, I want to see more. And then as the conversation continued, you saw more photos. So like I hit them once, like, okay, I'm sticking around a little bit longer, see what else happens. And then at the end of the conversation, I showed another photo. I think there's like 3 photos in that video. And a lot of the comments I got was like, dude, you're way too humble. Your work is professional. You're crazy. Like, how could you say this about yourself? And then the rest of it was, this guy looks like Eminem. That's
the perfect storm.
It was. So it was definitely a mixture of things. but I was also engaging with other people in the comments. So when I was engaging with people about like the compliments and stuff, people really appreciated that I was commenting back. And I think that's there's something that a lot of people don't like do. I take about an hour or two each day replying to comments and messages as much as I can. And
Nice.
I think that really helped drive the connection between the community and myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You can't post and ghost, and I see it a lot on some accounts, especially like the bigger accounts out there where there's no interaction back. In fact, there's this one guy that I follow, and in the comment section, I've seen it multiple times that their followers reply to other people asking questions, being like, "Don't expect a reply to your comment," like he's not going to answer. But I mean, I think that's a huge opportunity lost versus you taking the time to actually connect with your audience is a phenomenal way of actually growing community. And I'm curious what that has opened up the doors to in your business.
Well, I'll give you a bit of backstory. This is actually not my first Instagram account I've created that's gotten a lot of followers.
Okay.
So years ago, I had a faceless channel. I owned a Toyota Celica as my first project cars. It was awesome. I rebuilt it with my dad. But I had this big passion for the car scene, specifically around that car. So I created a page that was actually a reshare page. And so
Okay.
people would DM me photos of their cars and I would share it. And I grew it to like 4,500 followers. And I think I was the third largest in that niche in the country. And the thing I realized was there wasn't a lot of community engagement, and it was a faceless page, and I didn't like that. And then when I have my current car now, I also create a page for it to show off my photography, but there wasn't a lot of community engagement. So when I started engaging more on this page and it gained the success that it had, it unlocked a lot of opportunity for me to network with people. I ran into people at Grid Life, my favorite motorsport event, and there's an opportunity there that I can take advantage of if I want to. But the networking has gained me a lot of online friends and online opportunities. Like I was able to work with one of my favorite brands because I replied to their comment. As simple as that. Like when that video was going viral and I hit 50,000 followers, they commented because I had this little thank you post. When they commented, I was like, "Thank you so much." And they immediately followed me and then messaged me right after that saying, "Hey, we want to send you something." And it could have easily been one of those comments I just didn't respond to. And that would have never happened if I didn't just at least say thank you. And what people don't realize is a simple thank you can take you a long way. And people who comment on your posts or message you, if you reply back to them and say you have a following this size, they are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think you were going to respond." And it's probably because we have this, nature where people just do not reply. But you take 10 minutes out of your day to reply to someone, it makes their day that much better. And if I can impact at least one person by doing that, why not? Why not just do it?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure it gets harder and harder the bigger you grow and the more comments come in and the
more
less time
platforms
you
you're on.
have. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has gotten harder. I get a lot of filtered messages that I don't get to sometimes, and I feel really bad. But then when I do get to them, even if it's like a week later, they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you for replying. I didn't think you were going to." And luckily, a lot of comments have kind of subsided in a way where like I don't have to reply as much, which doesn't help me because that engagement has now kind of gone down. But as long as I reply to people's comments within the day, it does really help. And I've even gotten that confirmation from Meta directly where they said, if you replied to them within a week, that's what we care about. I was like, a week? That's like sending an email and you forgot about it and then you get back to it the next week. Like, no, I replied to them like the same day. Are you kidding me? So but I set that standard for myself, and I don't always get to every comment. I do make sure I reply to comments that are constructive and form the kind of community that I want. Anything that's super negative, or if it's criticism but it's not constructive criticism, I try to avoid it as much as I can, because then if I respond to it, I don't want to respond to it in a way where it's going to cause more issues. I'd rather just leave it be and then move on, because it's not worth anybody's energy.
Yeah, don't throw fire on fire.
Yeah.
I think there's also other ways bigger creators like you can, build that community and hone that community. And I think that's through, for example, stories. You could do like, ask me anything, or choose a couple questions from your DMs and then answer them on your stories. And announce that you're going to be doing that. So people kind of join in and ask you those questions. I think there's like ways you can utilize the app to like, still build a community without having to spend hours and hours and hours answering comments. But
yeah,
so,
like last week we spoke to, we had another guest, Miguel, and he was telling us that he has probably on paper tapped out on all the topics that he could talk about within his niche. But he said that the new source for content ideas has been from his audience. Literally all the questions that he's been getting, he's compiling them now.
Yeah.
And now he's making YouTube videos, and each one of those questions, even though he's already answered a lot of those questions in previous content, the context of how the question is asked and specific to that person gives it a whole new meaning in the answer as well, which is a neat way.
That's interesting because I've done the same thing, and there's this funny thing my wife and I do. We'll be saying the same thing but in different ways, and sometimes it'll lead to like a little debacle. Like we're agreeing with each other, we're just saying it differently, and I think that really ties into what you're talking about. It's like there's so many different ways you can answer one question, and like you said, the context around it really matters. Yeah. I've personally deployed that method before early on in my journey where I did do an Ask Me Anything, and I got some really, really good comments from people. And I've made a whole video where I would highlight their comment on the screen and I would answer it. And it's not the way that they do in Instagram. You can do it like that in TikTok, but I just take a screenshot and I put it in my video. And those people have actually stuck around longer, and they still message me from time to time. And I think it's because like when I put their question out there on display and I gave them that value, and I also gave them the platform for other people to discover them, they really appreciated it. So they've stuck around longer than some people. Which has been really cool. And some of my most recent YouTube videos, I've also taken an Ask Me Anything segment, and I've actually put it into a full-blown YouTube video that has been found helpful for others.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. Your content combines your love for cars, photography, a little bit of technology. How did you find the right balance between all of these interests, and what advice would you give to creators trying to blend multiple passions into their content?
That's a great question. So all of my hobbies are probably the most expensive hobbies that you could ever pick. I love cars, tech, and I love cameras. And in the past, what I would do is I would kind of like give it little spurts here and there. Like I'd do stuff to my car for a little while, and then I would do stuff with my other hobbies. And there's other things I like to do, like hiking and camping, that I don't do as much at the moment. But what I ended up doing was I got into automotive photography back in 2017 when I actually started, because I went on a car trip with my friends to the East Coast. We went to an event called H2OI, which no longer happens, but automotive enthusiasts will know of the name. And I borrowed my friend's camera, and all I did was just take pictures of cars as we're driving down the strip, and there'd be these car meetups in these random parking lots, and I would take pictures. And I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just taking these random photos of these people's cars. But when I got the photos home and I also had video, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, let me play around with this and play around with that. And I dabbled in Adobe Illustrator to try and do some sketching. I've done all these different things. And I didn't have my car at the time. I was like in this random Honda that I owned because my Celica finally died. But a few months later, when I bought my Scion FRS, I would go for drives all the time. And I was like, why don't I just take my camera with me, see what happens? And so I take my camera with me, and I still have that camera. It was my first one. But I would just go drive, park in a random parking garage, and I would just take pictures. And I fell in love with Peter McKinnon's work. He was the first photographer that I watched on YouTube. All of his tutorials were just amazing, well crafted. I think I started watching him when he was like in a little itty bitty room at his house. Like he didn't even have a full studio at the time. And all of his videos were just like how to edit, how to do this, that. And he's not primarily an automotive photographer. He does a lot of landscapes. At least then he did. And I was like, this is actually really cool, learning something new. And I used Photoshop in high school as like a photography class. So that's kind of like goes way back further. So I've always had some sort of inclination to doing something like that. but I love driving. I love cars, and people take pictures of their cars all the time. So it just kind of made sense to mash those together. The advice I would give on how to do that is just look at what it takes to be a part of this hobby. So like people love going for bike rides. And it's like, well, you love going for bike rides. Do you go ride on trails? Do you go ride on paths? Do you take place in triathlons or whatever? And then how do you match that with something like traveling? You can go and travel to other parts of the country or other parts of the world and take part in triathlons. Like just find something that is a unique opportunity and then find another one that can kind of coexist with it. And then just put those two together. Cars and cameras makes sense. Cars and coffee doesn't. But that's an event that we go to all the time. We drink coffee and we look at cars. That's just a thing that people do. But if you really look at the hobbies that you do, it's actually pretty easy once you start boiling it down. Like I can be a tech YouTuber if I wanted to, because I love tech, I love gaming, but I like going outside. So I don't do much of that, but I like going outside, and that just seemed to make the most sense. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, definitely.
What about for like a busy entrepreneur? Maybe they have a less exciting type of work. Maybe they're spending lots of time in the office or something like that and don't have a lot of time for hobbies. What kind of content would you recommend they make? Or how can they document what they're doing, but still like use it as content?
And you'd be surprised how much people actually like just documenting your entire day. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a guy who works a 9-to-5 job. I think it's called Hub's Life. Hub's Life. If you haven't seen him, I recommend looking him up. He literally just takes his iPhone and he sets it down and records himself getting ready for his day. And he doesn't talk or anything. He just puts captions up on screen like something motivational or like this is what I'm doing at this time and stuff. And he just documents his day, and he works for an insurance agency, which I don't know about you, but insurance doesn't sound like fun to me.
No. Not at all.
But he's documenting just getting ready for work, going to work, coming home from work, relaxing and decompressing from the day. This guy has millions and millions of followers, and he makes more money doing content creation than he does from his actual job.
Wow.
But he doesn't leave his job because
it's
that's
content.
his content.
Wow, you're kidding.
No, I'm not. I look it up. If you haven't seen his stuff, I think he's more popular on TikTok, but like I see him every once in a while, and he just has this very melancholic look to his face. Like he looks sad, but he's not. He's like, this is just me.
He's
like,
probably just trying to be relatable to all the other 9-to-5ers.
He's relatable to me, man. But I think for people
no
who
offense.
have, no offense, great content. But I think people who have these jobs where, they think, oh, there's nothing interesting about this job. Do you know how many people would be interested to know what it takes to be a forklift operator? That's like, it's a very random thing to talk about, but people would like to know, what does it take to do what you do? If you're a mechanical engineer or if you work on large machinery, bring us along with you. Kind of like shadowing somebody for work, or bring your kid to work day, except for it's bring your camera to work day.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And I think with the technology that we have, people aren't using it enough. Like your phone is more than enough. I don't need a fancy camera to take pictures of cars, but it helps. So I think that if you just take your camera along with you and document it however you see fit, then you'll start realizing, wow, this is not that difficult.
Yeah, everything is content in 2024.
Yeah. And a lot of it, I've found myself, it's a matter of perspective. What you may think is boring and ordinary in your own life could be somebody's dream, right? Like they may want to drive that forklift and know what it's like, and you may be like, oh, I'm so ready to quit this job. But it's a quote that I remember from another conversation we had is there's someone out there that needs your knowledge, and they're just waiting for you to share it. So wherever you are in life and whatever stage, whatever job you got, sharing that could be extremely valuable to somebody else, and in so many ways that we as individuals may not even consider to be.
Yeah, and I think people have this mental barrier where they think like, oh, I'm 16 years old. I don't have a lot of experience, but you do. When I was 16 years old, I have had a lot of experience from my own childhood that I could reflect on. And I had a lot of experience of what it was like to grow up where I grew up or to experience what I've experienced. Like people think like, oh, well, there's nothing that I've experienced that other people haven't. It's like, no, that's a lie. There are definitely things you have experienced that other people have not experienced. And I've personally met somebody half my age. I'm 30, by the way. But I've met somebody half my age who has experienced more than I did when I was 15 in a good way. And it's like, that is powerful. And it's just so difficult for people to kind of get past that mental barrier. Because I've also been behind that barrier. It's like, I do nothing interesting. But then I start thinking back to my job at Uber and the conversations I would have. If I were to write down these notes, or if I were to, document what was going on in the office I worked in, I could have a Netflix documentary. Like there are some crazy things that I've experienced at that job that I could sell a book. And that's what people do too. Like they write books on their lives and their experiences. I'm currently listening to 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And what I really like about it is like, it's all stuff that he experienced. And then all things he thought of and put to use in his own life. And it's like a best-selling book. And it's like, that's just his experiences and his opinions of how to do things. And people gobble that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. It's well said, well put.
Thank you.
I never
speechless.
I never actually thought about it in that simple way, that it's like literally just his experiences.
Yeah. Well, you think about like how people learn from previous generations. It's all stories.
Yeah.
Like you sit there and you listen to your grandparents talk about like, oh, when I was growing up, this is what it was like. Like that sounds boring. And don't get me wrong, it can be. But in reality, like that's how information was passed down in the past.
Yeah.
Like we knew that this was a thing because our ancestors told us. But now we have all the information we need at our fingertips. People think that my experiences aren't unique because you can just Google this experience and somebody else has done it. But it's like, you should be that person that they're searching for. You should be that person who's looking up to and like, hey, this person has done this before and I found them because I looked it up and I want to know how to do it. That's why YouTube is so successful. People go to YouTube to learn. And if you have something to teach, there you go. There's your platform.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's bang on. And that also explains, like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I can watch, if I'm doing research on something, I can watch like 5-6 videos, and none of those videos will get to the answer that I'm trying to really get to. And then there'll be the one video where like the one guy's experience, like with my Mac Studio, when I bought my Mac Studio, I was doing so much research and I just couldn't find yet a creator that was a video editor that did all the things that I do, until maybe like my 10th or 11th video that I watched. I finally got to that video and I was like, yes, like this is the decision-making video. Based on this guy's experience, I'm going to go ahead with the purchase. But based on some of other videos that were just talking tech specs and all the stuff that I could Google, I never really had the experience of me visualizing myself using computer or seeing how someone else's use of that computer directly applies to my experience.
Yeah.
And it was that video that did it for me.
That's a great point. I actually did a video recently where I had to change the traction fluid in my supercharger of my car. It's very specific, but there's only written explanation on how to do it directly from some random post on a forum. And so I took that and I turned it into a video. And it didn't get a lot of views, which is fine, but I had one person comment saying they could not find a video on how to do it, and they found me. And they're like, thank you, because it's like, it's such a tedious task and it's so gut-wrenching. He's like, I'm just glad that I've seen somebody else do it. So now I feel more confident to go do that same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe if it's a super niche topic, it might not be a viral hit, but nonetheless, it could help a very specific type of people.
It'll be something they'll hang around for a very long time. Like it may not serve people today or, next week, but who knows? As these things happen to vehicles, eventually it's inevitable that someone's going to have to look that up and figure out how to do it themselves, maybe.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised, but there's another YouTuber in the automotive scene called Chris Fix, and I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's the largest followed automotive YouTuber because he literally teaches you how to work on cars.
Okay.
And that's his entire content, and he has done it for years. And there's these memes that go online like, I don't know how to do this, and then it's like they pull up their phone and they're like, hey, Chris Fix here, and like that's his tagline. And people kept going to his videos because like he was teaching you how to be a mechanic on your own car. And when I grew up, my dad taught us how to work on our own cars. And it's like that was how that information was passed on to me. But then I learned so much from YouTube on how to work on cars. I've completely disassembled my car and put it back together all by myself to do the supercharger. And I had a booklet with engineering dialogue that was very difficult to read, but I also had YouTube videos where it's like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And people just don't realize it. Like the information you have, the experience you have is powerful.
Wow.
You know what YouTuber, you may even know this person, Scott Kilmer or Scotty Kilmer, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Rev up your engines.
Yeah, every time he makes a video with a Toyota in it, my friends send it to me. Like, dude, watch this video.
Yeah, he is such a good YouTuber. And I don't know how old he is. My guess would be in his 60s probably. But yeah, but he's been just pumping out content consistently and good quality, all vehicle content. And that tends to be the YouTuber that I go to when I need to do something on one of my cars because he has basically a video for every car, every problem. Well, he's getting there at least.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Goes to show the power and how many views he also has. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanna talk about monetization and digital products because when we met, Tom Noski's Time to Build cohort 5, it was. That's one of the things that we were all three of us learning at the same time was the monetization and digital products. And since then, I've noticed that you've successfully diversified yourself with some income streams and affiliate marketing, digital products, even brand deals, and more. So I'm curious, which of these revenue streams do you think is the most sustainable long-term for you and why?
I would say the digital products are going to be the most sustainable. It's low barrier to entry, and again, it's stuff that I already do. So in that cohort, we talked about selling sawdust, and that really resonated with me because it's like going back to the SOP conversation earlier. Like the information you have is important, and people will be willing to pay to have that information from you. So my preset pack, I launched it very early in my creative journey, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing, and I didn't get a lot of sales. And then since then, I have gotten more sales, but it's all tied to promoting it. And what I get a lot of is whenever I try promoting it, it doesn't seem to work out the way I want it to. The issue there is not the product itself, it's actually me. I'm not very good at marketing these products, but when I see the upside to it, when I make a sale, like it's something that's always going to be there. It's like an evergreen product. Like it's always going to be available. It's super easy to get. You just download it. I don't have to print a shirt. I don't have to make a sticker. Those are things I tried doing in the past. I've tried selling stickers. Like I had my own cutting machine, but it was such a hard thing to do. You have to have shipping supplies. You have to have a label maker and stuff like that. And it was just exhausting. But with a digital product, if I make it on my computer and it's a downloadable file, congratulations. It takes me a weekend to make a digital product, and then it's being delivered for me and people are using it. So that's the most sustainable because everything else requires so much more effort. So the brand deal I did, I've done a couple of videos and I got paid for one, but I've got a lot of free stuff from that company. It worked well because I'm already out there making content. But I have to be sure to go out of my way to make sure I'm ticking off all these boxes for them. And that was very stressful for me because I like to do things right the first time around. Right. And so I didn't want to deliver on something that wasn't going to be up to their standard. And so that wasn't going to be sustainable for me. Now, I'll still do them, but I'm not going to chase that every single week or every single month because I'm already working a job where it's stressful enough. I don't want to do that. Digital products is definitely, at least in my field, is the right way to go if you want sustainable.
Yeah, I would agree.
And for you, that happens to be your preset packs for the photos that you're already taking and already editing and already sharing that, like you were saying, that people admire. And they go, oh, these are the photos that he's taken. It's a great way to participate and get to be able to achieve some results similar to yours, at least on the video editing part, right?
Yeah, it is. And I've purchased preset packs in the past. Like I've purchased one from Peter McKinnon and I loved his style. So I really wanted to learn how to do that same style. So I deconstructed those presets and over time I've created my own and they save me a ton of time. But that's why I try to make it as easy to use as possible. Like if you select a preset, it's not going to do everything for you, but it's going to get you pretty far in that editing process. And on top of getting those presets, I was like, okay, I don't want to just give them the files and say, good luck, have fun. Like I want to give them more. So they get an install video, they get a 50-minute tutorial on how I edit specifically. So, if they're like, wait a minute, if I put this preset on, it doesn't look like his images, that video explains to them everything else that I do in my process to where they could replicate it or they could take pieces from it and do it themselves. So the value that I put in that, I want it to be 10 times the value that I've received from other presets in the past. And so far, people have thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's a great approach. I've gotten preset packs in the past when I was an early on photographer, and I struggle with that. It was like, aren't you supposed to just click it and just look like this end result over here? And it's the lack of understanding that there's all these other steps that need to happen to achieve that. There's some masking, some brushing, some gradients, and some color work that's going on beyond the preset pack. So I think that's a great value add that you are actually educating on how to use them and how you use them to get your own results so people can see how their results may be a little bit different.
Yeah, and I've personally had that experience too. Like when I've purchased preset packs in the past, it's like, wow, my images look nothing like it. But what people don't realize is like when you are editing a photo from one camera, if you edit a different photo from a different camera, they're not going to look the same because the way that these companies design their software and their imagery, like it's not going to be the same. I had a preset pack from Peter McKinnon and he's a Canon shooter and I was editing on a Nikon photo. It's like, wow, this looks awful. But like when I changed it up a little bit, I was like, okay, that looks a little bit more like what he did. And I've had people make comments to me like, why do you sell presets? Like, this is absolutely terrible of you to do because you're selling a lie. But I try to help them reframe that thought process and think like, why is it that you think that this is terrible? Have you been burned in the past where you think, oh, I'm going to have this one-click solution and I'm good to go? It's like 9 times out of 10, yes, that's exactly what they expect. But on my page, I tell them like, this is not a one-click solution. In the video, this is how you do it. And I think having that transparency is very important when it comes to selling any product for that matter.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of monetization, you have an upcoming workshop called Balancing Act. And it aims to help creators balance their passion with everyday life. What key lessons do you hope that your students will take away, especially those who are just starting their journey?
The key thing that I want people to take away is that it's not impossible to do this on the side. I think that when they see a creator, they're thinking that they're full-time creators. I've had people ask me if I do this full-time, and I don't. I work my 9-to-5 job, and I do this in my off hours. And I think that a lot of people find that surprising because of the amount that I'm putting out there every single day. And it's like, well, if you find a system and if something you can replicate over and over again, it doesn't take that much time. So I want them to be able to take away, like, there is enough time in the day to fit something in like this. We have to identify where that fits into your life because people think that being a content creator is going to consume your life. But I like to flip the script and say, my life is not going to be molded to my content. My content is going to fit in where it can fit into my life.
Amen.
Because if I don't do it that way, I'm going to be consumed by it and I'm going to hate it just as much as I don't like my job. And that's the takeaway I want. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much time they actually waste where they're like on their screens, like doom scrolling. I do it too sometimes. But there's so much time in the day that you're wasting on something rather than putting it towards a creative passion. It can be a side income. Who can't use more money now? I always get questions like, how do I get clients? How am I constantly getting clients? Like all my clients are organic. I do not approach people. I do not cold call. I do not do any of that. People come to me and it's because I'm promoting myself so much. So the other big takeaway I want is social media is not supposed to be the way that you perceive it. It should be your marketing arm. It should be where you're showing off to the world what you're capable of doing and then targeting that audience that wants to do the same thing you do. Whether it's be a photographer, be a videographer, be a painter even, whatever the case is, that is my marketing. So when I go and do these photo shoots, that's my free marketing I'm getting out to people and attracting them in. And that's landed me so many clients and so many paid opportunities versus just hoping that somebody shows up. Like nobody's going to show up because they don't know I exist.
Yeah.
Right. Are there any key lessons that you would, or key takeaways that you would like to share in regards to marketing yourself? Because one thing is to post content on social media, but another thing is to actually market yourself, speak
Or
to
sell on social media.
or sell on social media, right? Speak to pain points, speak to desires. Any key lessons or takeaways that you've had in your journey of marketing on social media?
It's still a very tricky thing for me of marketing on social media. But what I have found to be very helpful is showing people where I screwed up and how they can avoid it. So if I screw up or I've had experience of messing something up and I have a solution for that, it's a lot easier for me to talk about it because I'm a problem solver in my day job. I see a need, I fill that need with a solution. Or somebody gives me a vision and I create that vision for them. Those are kind of like my two superpowers. So when it comes to marketing on social media, it's like it would take me 3 hours to edit a set of photos. But if I'm able to trim that down to an hour and a half, here's how I did that. Here's how I've gotten over the perfectionism of things. Like I do my work to a certain point and then I get it out there and I stop wasting my time. So I try to base it off a real world experience. That is still tricky for me because I've gotten past a lot of that stuff. So trying to rethink it now that I've been a photographer for almost 7 years, it's like, what did I screw up on 7 years ago that I can still use today as a way to explain and market to people a solution? So that's still kind of tricky, but I think that has been also the most genuine way possible. I do not like scripting at all. Like I'll do it, but I'll do bullet points. And trying to create a hook is very difficult for me. So I'd rather say like, do this instead of this, because this is what happens if you don't do it this way. It's still a struggle. And to be honest, like I know I can be better, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a learning process, work in progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Lots of resources out there as well that can help with all that stuff too. But ultimately, yeah, it just takes practice to get better at it for sure.
Well, you got to know I found one of the most important things in being able to successfully market is really knowing your audience. And if you have a personal brand and your audience resembles you, if they're anything like you, then it's kind of like looking inwards and seeing like you're saying, what mistakes have I made in the past? What kind of changes have I made? What kind of improvements? And where am I heading? And then using those talking points, you're actually marketing or communicating very effectively to people that are just like you. I found that to be probably the best way to get my mindset into a marketing mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And that's the exercise I've been going through for some time now. It's been months in the making because life just gets in the way. But I have my notebook with me at all times now. So this is actually from Uber, courtesy of them. But I've had this notebook for years and I've taken notes in it on various things. And I carry it with me everywhere now. So on my bedside table, I'll leave it there. And if I have an idea or I have an experience I'm reflecting on, I'll write it in this. And that has helped me a lot recently. I've only started doing it in the last month, but it has really helped because sometimes I get in the moment where it's like I'm reflecting on an experience I've had 10 years ago. Wow. And it's like, what did I learn from that? And so I try writing that down. Or what did I just go through 5 minutes ago and how did that make me feel? And journaling that has been very helpful for me because eventually at some point there's going to be a topic that is going to be for that audience member that I'm trying to target.
Right.
Yeah, writing things down really helps. My issue is I'll write things down and I'll never go back and look look at it.
I do that, but with phones. Like if people say use the Notes app on your Mac or your iPhone, it's like, but it's so easy to just forget that it's there.
Right.
And then you look at it 5 months later and like, what was I doing?
Exactly.
Yeah. I literally just ran into probably like 10 scripts, just going through my notes and clearing them out. I was like, wow, I wrote all these things down, maybe like on an Uber ride or something. I was just writing down my thoughts. And then, well, hey, I got an extra like 10 scripts or so, or like talking points for new content.
Never know when you're going to need them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I like to do this thing where we have a thought that the other person needs to know, and we'll text it to them and say, hey, this is for later. Don't worry about it right now. And then we'll talk about it later. I've done that with her. We're like, here's an idea. Remind me later to talk to you about it. And sometimes that has helped, but I try not to inundate her with text messages.
Let's talk about that, the work-life balance, time management, like balancing a full-time job, a family life, and content creation is not easy, especially from my perspective. Like it'd be a lot, I would think. So how do you manage your time effectively to avoid burnout? And what role does time blocking play into your daily routine? Or how do you go about it?
So I cut out a lot of the fat. And what I mean by that is that we spend so much time doing things that don't contribute to our overall goals. And this is one of the things I like to touch, I want to be touching on with my students is like, you don't realize that there's so many hours in a day unless it's negatively impacting you. Where it's like, oh, there's only so many hours a day I can do these things. But like in reality, what are you spending those hours on? And there's this frame of mind I've taught my brother years back when we were roommates. I was like, rather than looking at your week as days, look at it as hours. There's 168 hours in a week. 56 of those you're sleeping. If you get 8 hours a night, which I don't, but you're sleeping that much, you're working 40 hours. So you've got 72 hours to live. If I were to approach you and say, you have 72 hours to live, what are you going to do?
Wow.
And if you think of it in that way, you start thinking about like, what am I spending that 72 hours on? Am I taking care of myself? Am I doing chores? Am I taking care of my family? Or am I scrolling? And when you start realizing where your time is being allocated, it's easier to cut that fat out. I like to do it in a way like I do my budgeting for finances. What are all these small purchases that I'm making that are adding up over a long period of time that's negatively impacting my financial position? The same thing is with my time. Like if I'm spending 5 hours a day on my phone over an entire month, that's hundreds of hours of time wasted on something that doesn't contribute to my goals. And so what I started doing was cutting out or identify the fat and cutting it out. So I honestly don't have a social life, but that's nothing new. I didn't have a lot of a social life growing up. And so that's just easy. I do try to see my family as much as I can, but I also stopped playing video games a whole lot because that was one of my hobbies I love to do. And I try to be more productive during this time of year. And I save that for different times of the year where it's like winter, I'm not going outside as much. Maybe I'll give myself a little bit of relaxation. I also cut the fat at my job. So I wholeheartedly believe I do not need to work 8 hours a day to effectively do my job. If I'm able to deliver on my responsibilities and I only worked 4 hours that day, great.
4 hour work week.
Yeah, 4 hour work week. Like, hey, congratulations. I will be here if you need me. I'll be online, but my work here is done. And so I try to do it in such a way where I'm streamlining my processes. Because as an analyst, that's my job is to streamline processes. And so I just started applying the same methodology to my life. And so I'm able to get up in the morning and I'm able to go exercise, come home, have breakfast, take a shower, be done with my day, or go on with my day. And I'm able to take incremental breaks and go spend time with my family. And that is where the time blocking really comes in. I've gone from what I've learned as a manager schedule, where I've got time block here, all the way down, like 30-minute increments. And I've turned it into what's called a maker schedule, which is long periods of time of just one block with certain activities inside of it. And there are 3 main blocks. I have my work, my personal, and my creative. And so I will segment out hours of time for work. I'll have a break, and then I'll segment more time for other things. And doing that has forced me to be more mindful of the time that I spend on one particular task. The other thing I started doing is using what's called the big rock method. So I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's a really good prioritization / time management thought process. You have this jar and you have these big rocks, pebbles, and sand, and you have to fit all of it into this jar. And he asked people, how do you do this? Are you going to put in the sand first, the small pebbles, or the big rocks? And the answer is big rocks first, small pebbles next, sand last.
I learned this in school.
Yeah. The big rocks are your primary task, your priority ones. Get those done first, and then do the other items. The smaller rocks are like important and urgent tasks. Do those next. And then the sand is unimportant tasks that don't contribute to your goals. Mm-hmm. And following that method, I'm able to identify priority 1, 2, and 3, which is what we use in product development. That's my line of work, is in product development. So we prioritize work and we cut out the fat because it's like, hey, this isn't actually contributing to the overall product. So these are. So we're going to focus on these. And I like to think of the output that I have as my product. So in the development life cycle, you go through these ideas, you go through prioritizing the ideas, and you go through developing the ideas into a finished product. And then the last thing that I like to do too, I force myself into these time blocks. So if I don't get the task done, I save it for the next time. Okay. So I don't burn out.
And so it doesn't spill over to the other, like it doesn't break your boundaries of now you're moved on to the other time block.
Exactly. Like at 5 p.m., my work is done. And then from 5 to 5:30, I take a break to decompress. And then from 6 to say 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe I'm going to work on edits. But once that time hits 9, I'm spending time with my family.
We could definitely get better at that. Sometimes I can't rip this guy away from editing a video or something like that. It just has to finish it. But I think part of that is also being in the creative flow, right? As someone who is creative, sometimes like you just get into the flow and like it's, you know that if you step away from it, it'll take you some time to get back into it. So how do you deal with that?
There is a method that I learned. It's by a famous writer. And you might, when I explain it, you might know who it is. I can't remember. But when they were writing a script, or they're writing something for a movie, when they have to stop, they stop in the middle of a sentence instead of finishing it. Because then when they come back to it, they're able to read the first part of the sentence and pick back up where they left off easier. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but I'm not a writer. But when I'm in the middle of something, I'll stop halfway through and leave it up on my screen, or maybe I'm writing something down, and then I'll come back to it, reread or look at what I just did and like, oh wait, yeah, this is where I was when I left off. That has saved me a lot of guesswork when it comes to, hey, I just worked 3 hours straight, but I'm in the middle of this project, I gotta step away. When I come back, I'm right back in that flow. And that was a method I started using a couple months back, and it's really helped me.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, interesting.
And then you typically remember exactly like what you were doing, where you left off?
Yeah, if I'm editing a photo and I have a mask selection up on screen,
and
I look at that mask selection, I'm like, oh wait, yeah, I was still finagling with these slides.
Right.
Like, the important part is you leave it there. Like you just leave it.
Right. You don't shut it down, quit it. Yeah.
Yeah, don't quit it. Don't log out. Just leave it there on your screen. Or if you're writing down a piece of paper, do not finish a sentence. Just stop right in the middle of that sentence, and then you come back to it.
And I can also see how stepping away from it and then coming back to it later might give you like a fresh perspective, like look at it with fresh eyes, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll help you even be more decisive, or if you were like struggling with something, maybe it'll help.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to like if you're working on something and it's like, hey, I need a fresh set of eyes. Can you look at this for me? It's the same kind of thought process, but it's you, like past you versus future you. And you might have gone out and done something and come back like, oh my gosh, I just had this epiphany. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, amazing. Thanks for sharing that trick. I think we're gonna implement that ourselves.
Yeah, stop halfway.
So in your newsletter, you mentioned the importance of recognizing when you've earned your rewards, like your payday bar tradition. How do you celebrate small wins in your content creation journey, and why is this important for maintaining motivation?
I really love Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. I used to live behind one, and it was terrible because I had spent so much money there. But anytime I would hit a certain milestone, I would treat myself to Chick-fil-A. And actually, one time when I was in the line, I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram. I was like, sweet, I'm already here. Let's go.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, it was meant to be. The payday bar thing, it stems back to when I was a kid. My brother and I got a weekly allowance of $5. And that $5 meant everything to us. But we only got it if we did our chores. So whenever we would do our chores and showed our parents, we would get $5. But one day, my dad, who loves dad jokes, gave us each a payday bar. And he had a note that said, Happy Payday. And ever since then, that has been a tradition for me. So every paycheck I get, and now every paycheck my wife gets, I go down to the gas station and buy us payday bars. And that's just kind of like our reward to ourselves. Like, we earned it, right? And when I was unemployed for the first time ever during the pandemic, I actually stopped buying payday bars because I was getting money from the government. Like, I didn't earn that. True. I mean, I pay into it. I pay other people's unemployment, but when I'm receiving it, I didn't earn it. So when I went and I got my part-time job, I actually broke down in my car because I bought my first payday bar after months. And that to me was like symbolic. And so now when I do something successful with my content creation or my entrepreneurship, I like to just treat myself to a meal, like something simple. Yeah. When I hit 100,000 followers on Instagram, my wife was like, we have to go to this steakhouse we have here called Harry Nizzy's. Like, we have to go have a nice dinner. And she was like 8-9 months pregnant at that point, or pretty close. And so we celebrated by getting a nice dinner together.
That's great.
But it's delayed gratification at that point. You know, I don't eat out a lot. We like to eat at local restaurants and stuff. So we don't do it as often. And whenever I just feel good about something, I want to reward myself for the hard work I did. And that's usually what I do.
Yeah, I think that's so important too. We could definitely be better about that as well.
Well, we have the beach.
We have the beach, yeah. But
I'm so jealous.
We're like 10 minutes by car away. So, you know, unfortunately, it's one of those things, like when you live near it, you don't cherish it as much as you maybe should.
Yeah, I think it's forced scarcity. And I learned that a lot through my financial journey as well. Graham Stephan, when I was talking about him earlier, he gets McDonald's every once in a while as his treat. It's such a cheap thing to do, but it just means so much more when you actually think about it, because we spend so much money on senseless things that if you give yourself that forced scarcity and then you treat yourself every once in a while, that's what really gets you that motivation. And I can do with anything other than food, but I like food, so I just use that.
Yeah, of course. A little trip would be nice for me, but we'll get there.
Yeah, your trip would be good.
Oh yeah.
What's your payday bar of choice?
There's only two.
Okay.
But I always like to get the chocolate one here recently, but they don't sell them anywhere anymore. So I don't know if the company just stopped making them, but there's just the traditional one. And then they used to have one that was chocolate covered. And I was like, oh my gosh, that with a fresh cup of coffee, that's it. That's all I need in my life.
It's an actual bar called Payday.
Yeah, we're not familiar. I don't think we have that in Canada. So.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
or Mexico.
Okay. So Payday bar is just a bunch of peanuts with caramel on it.
Oh,
like
nice.
like the caramel bar, and then the peanuts are sprinkled over it.
With chocolate too?
Well,
perfect combination.
The original one is just peanuts and caramel. But the one I like to get, they would drizzle chocolate on top of it. So it's kind of like a Snickers bar in a way, but it's a lot more peanuts.
Nice.
So, but it's called Payday. It's crazy. If you are ever in the States, try it out.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting candy bar, but it's my favorite.
I gotta get myself a Payday there.
Yeah,
I love the name of it too.
Yeah,
it's so
there's
fitting.
another candy bar I like to get that's called 100 grand.
Okay. So every 100 grand?
A month?
Yeah, right? That would be great.
This is meant to be.
That's hilarious. So let's dive into community, because you've been able to build a loyal community around your content, which is really amazing. How is it that you foster and maintain this engagement, and what strategies have you found most effective in growing a genuine following with a loyal community involved?
I think that it starts with the kind of content you put out in the first place. So the genuine interactions that I have, the non-scripted nature of my content really sets the tone of being authentic. I think authenticity is so scarce nowadays because we're constantly battling the flashy edits and the beastification of content. And so I think people just want to get back to that raw content. Like I grew up on YouTube, like ever since it started, and vlogging was such a big thing because you actually got to interact with your audience by talking to camera. I mean, granted, I'm not talking directly to camera, but I'm still talking in a monologue that people can relate to. Yeah. And when people comment on something that I've said, like, hey, I really needed this, I always reply back and I always tell them, like, I'm so glad that this helped you. Or I'm so glad I was able to do that for you. And it's out of genuine, like I get chills thinking about it, but like I do actually thoroughly enjoy impacting people in a positive manner. And I think that is exuded through my content, but also through the way that I talk to people in the comment section and also in messages. And because of that, and because I answer people, they could be like, hey, I have this really stupid question. And it's like, no question is stupid. You know, like it's a question, just ask it. And if I give you a really simple answer, then there you go. It wasn't a super serious question. It wasn't super complex. And then I will also have people ask me to critique their work. And I don't like doing that. And I'll be upfront with people and tell them, like, I don't critique other people's work because the work is art. And your art is for your enjoyment and nobody else. If other people enjoy it, great. I always ask people, like, what do you like about it? Or what do you not like about it?
Right.
And keep that in mind when you're looking at it. And if you don't like it, change it. But being open and transparent and honest with people, I think has really helped foster the community that I really want. Because I want us to just get along. You know, like it costs nothing to be nice.
Yeah.
It costs nothing to just say thank you. And I think if we, you know, can portray that as a content creator, it's a lot easier to create a community that we want.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it
That's
costs
awesome.
like there's that post on Instagram that was floating around. I think it was like a template you could repost your own story about. Like it costs, you know, 0 to like, comment, share, engage with someone's post, but it'll mean the world to the person on the other side. So I love that.
And I like what you said also on critiquing people's work. I think that's really important to not look out for external validation of your own work as an artist, because it puts the focus on pleasing people versus just exploring your creativity and seeing what you like yourself. Because sometimes your best work you could be holding back yourself from your best work by letting other people's critique be the driver for that. But when you're creating content for yourself, it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's just for you.
Absolutely. And I've been guilty of that too, where like I'll seek outward, you know, praise from other people and stuff. And you do the thing where you pull up your phone, like, oh my God, look at this, look what I made, you know? And I think that when people hear that from me, they are actually surprised. Like they expected for somebody to critique them. And I think it also hurts people though, when they do get criticism from people where they say like, I think your edit is trash. And that's one I still get. Like I still get people who don't like my edit style. And the way I combat that is like to each their own. Yeah. Like I don't owe them an explanation as to why they don't like it. They just don't like it. And there's some work I don't even like that I create myself. But that's what pushes me to keep doing it and improve on it, is because I'm making the kind of content I want to create. And I make the kind of edits I want to make. Yeah. And if you just so happen to like it, fantastic. Come along for a ride. Hope you enjoy it. But if you don't like it, move on. It's that simple. I mean, there's so many painters out there. My mom's a painter. She's a self-taught artist, and she's painted hundreds of paintings.
Same with my mom.
And yeah, that's awesome. And she's actually about to go to Italy for the second time because her artwork is being portrayed in a gallery.
Wow.
And she thought, like, no, I did not think anybody was ever going to want to see my art in a gallery. Wow. But some random guy named Giuseppe in Italy was like, hey, I like your stuff and I want it in my gallery. And so, you know, we make the art for ourselves to enjoy. And all of my artwork in my house is actually by my mom because I love her art so much. Aww. And, you know, when I talk to people...
Number one fan.
Yeah, number one fan. When I talk to people about their own art, it's like, listen, if you look at it and it brings you joy, there you go. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's why I kind of had a bit of a tough time in college. I went to photography school. And I mean, like, the teacher's jobs is literally to critique the students' art. And yeah, it was always so bittersweet because a part of me knew that it's so like subjective, you know?
Yeah.
Like how can you truly critique someone's art? Sure, you could critique it from like a technical standpoint, the lighting, I don't know, color, but balance and all these things and composition maybe. But everything else, like the concept, I don't know. It was always tough for me.
The way I like to think about it is there are hard skills and soft skills to everything. What learning on the job is the fastest way to learn anything through experience. And I can teach anybody how to use a piece of technology, right? That's a hard skill. But I can't teach everybody how to talk nicely to other people. I think that's just something that you have to develop over time. And I like to think of my art as the same way. Like I absolutely had no idea how to use this camera when I first got it, so I felt like a complete noob. But my soft skills were transferable over from my previous camera. Like I still know how to compose an image, how to edit an image, but that's something that takes time. And I'll get people who message me like, I'm a 15, 16, 17-year-old photographer and I just got my first camera. Help me, like give me some tips. And it's like, my number one tip, practice.
Yeah.
Go out and take pictures. Learn how to edit, learn how to compose your images. And if you don't like it, okay, how can I better myself? You can look up tutorials. You can ask other people for their opinion. But I think the opinion that you need to look for is like not a critique, but hey, have you tried doing this? If you get a critique from somebody where it's like they make it sound like it's your idea, that's a lot easier to receive than just straight criticism. So if somebody asks me like, what can I do better? It's like, well, what do you not like about it? Well, I don't like this about my image. Then I'll come back and I'll say, have you tried doing this? It's just a suggestion. It's not saying like your work is garbage. It's just like try looking at it differently and reframe your mindset around it and see if you can change it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to approach it, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So in your content, you emphasize the importance of being your genuine self. How do you stay authentic in your interactions with your audience? And why do you think it resonates so well with them? I
try not to cut out random things that are embarrassing. So I actually, my video today was me not knowing how to use my camera. And I had the timer on. I didn't realize it. So I thought my camera was broken. And then I realized
that's happened to me before.
yeah. And I finally realized like, oh, nope, I just didn't do it right. And I actually said in the video, like, I'm keeping that in. Because people probably look at my stuff and think, oh, this guy never screws up. No, I screw up all the freaking time. It's not so much of trying to stay authentic. It just comes naturally. I think what really took a long time, though, was getting to the point where I felt comfortable being that way. Yeah. And that's years and years of conditioning of like, I'd never want to express myself the way I want to express because people always shut me down. So it's constantly learning. And I've had to, even the last year, I've had to do it so much over the last year of being okay with being goofy, being okay with being weird. Because to be honest, people like you more when you're just yourself. And that's also helped me a lot in my own relationship with my wife. It's like, I resonate with her because we both can just be complete idiots with one another and goofy all the time. And we don't have to pretend to be somebody we're not. Exactly. So that's definitely, you got to have a sense of humor too, right? You got to be able to laugh at yourself, not take yourself too seriously if you're going to leave something like that in. Because if you're trying to look too perfect and, like you've got it all figured out, which we know none of us really do.
I mean, it's a serious the concern for a lot of creators. Like, for example, like us that do a lot of talking head content that's not mid action doing what we do, like working on our computers and stuff like that. There's this extra level of, since you're addressing the camera, of maybe criticism, or I don't know how to describe it. Like you try to be a bit more intentional with what words you're saying, because it's almost like you're grabbing the microphone to say, hey, like I want to say something to you. So then you want to be more intentional versus the sawdust approach of just kind of documenting what you're doing and just speaking to the camera and capturing what you say as part of that action. I think that's a big reason why a lot of creators kind of get that. I don't know if it's like imposter syndrome or like, why should people listen to me? Or, I mean, it's a hard one, really. I think a lot of people face it. I still face it to this day sometimes. I try to just shrug it off and say, well, you can move on. Like you said, you can move on or you can stick around. That's up to you. But it's a very valid concern for a lot of people getting in front of the camera.
I think imposter syndrome is a great indicator that you're doing the right thing, though. Like, I like to challenge people to think, like, if you feel like an imposter, that means you're doing something right and you're growing. If you get too comfortable, you're never going to do anything with your life.
Yeah.
And I've learned that the hard way. Like, I've gotten really comfortable in a job, lost my job. I had to get uncomfortable to get myself out of the mess. And it led me to something greater. Things like buying our house was an uncomfortable experience, but we grew from that experience. And, then when I got my new job, I was like, I don't feel qualified for this job, but I constantly get reminded that I am qualified for this job because I have survived multiple cuts in a company where other people with more experience than me got let go, but I stuck around because they saw the potential in me. So I think the imposter syndrome is always going to be there. And I think if you learn how to embrace it and focus your energy to continue to experience that imposter syndrome, you're growing. And people are going to look at you and like, wow, you've grown a lot in the last year. And I've had a lot of people tell me that, like, you've grown so much in the last year. And it's like, that's good. Because this entire last year, I have felt like an imposter. I look at my follower count, I'm like, I don't think I deserve this many followers on my profile. Here I am. So I constantly battle to this day on that.
Right. And I bet that kind of translates also when a brand reaches out to you and says, hey, I would like you to do something with our product. And you're like, oh, why me? Right.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I have said no to every single one but the one because I won't work with a brand unless I align with them or I use their products and I truly believe in it. But when I get those emails, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool that you actually thought of me. And, some of them are just kind of trashy emails, like they seem like scammy and stuff. But then there's a few where it's like, oh, wow, this might actually be something. And I've even been in phone calls with people from Meta directly. And I was like, why did you pick me? And it's like, well, they pick a pool of applicants and people who have done very well on their platform. And you fill out these questionnaires and you fit the bill. But then when you have the actual conversation with them, they get to see you and hear from you. And it's like, we want to hear from you more. And that has also helped me kind of realize, like, I do have value that I can provide to others.
Definitely.
Can you share a little bit more about that conversation with Meta? Give us some insider info here.
There's been a few. I don't know if I can speak on the one where they did research. I did sign an NDA, but now it's public knowledge. So I don't know if I can technically free from that. It was just a product that they wanted to release within Instagram. And they just wanted to hear my experience. Like, I got to use it and they wanted to hear my thoughts on it. And they talked about, like, why this might be useful to somebody like me. And I gave them my honest opinion. I was like, I do not think this will be useful for me.
You tell them, Joe.
Yeah. And they're like, well, tell us why. And I told them 5 different ways from Sunday. I was like, no, this is not going to be useful for me. I don't think it'll be useful for other people. And it's not to like bash, it's just like, I'm being honest with you. And then I've been in creator calls recently where they talk about like how to monetize your audience, how to grow and reach and stuff like that. And I've been in the same Zoom call as people who have 10 times the followers I do. And it's like these other people have done amazing things. And it feels really cool to be included on those phone calls. So it's been interesting. I've gotten some really good insight from it. And I have been able to share some of that with people to help them out, especially when it comes to like how to be successful on Instagram. But yeah, I would like to dive deep into that research that I did because they did pay me to do it, which I thought was pretty cool. But I also like not being sued. So
Yeah,
it is public though now. So if you look at the recent releases, you'll see it. So
there's been a lot of them lately.
They went through with it, even though I told them it was a bad idea.
Well, they tend to do that.
Yeah, they do.
Here's a new feature you didn't ask for.
Right.
Yes.
Hey, like on the topic of brand partnerships too, you've had success with brand partnerships, such as your work with Polar Pro, correct? And what advice would you have for creators looking to secure brand deals? And how do you ensure that these partnerships align with your personal values? You mentioned saying no to a few and saying yes to a few as well. So guide us a bit through that process for you.
So the nice thing is that Polar Pro is the only brand I have worked with for this reason. And for the longest time, I've wanted to own their products. I've watched reviews. I've seen people like Peter McKinnon use it, and amazing products, well designed. I actually remember watching their Shark Tank pitch in 2011 when they first started off, which it's so cool full circle to see that moment happen.
Wow.
So I bought one of their filters back this year in January, and every post I make, I tag every brand that I use products from. So Sony, Sigma, Polar Pro, those are the big ones. And they have seen my content before. They have commented on, they have liked it before and stuff like that. And when I hit 50,000 followers and I said, thank you to my audience and stuff, that's when they commented saying like, keep up the great work. And that's when I commented back to them and you just told them, thank you. They followed me, they messaged me, and they basically said like, hey, we see that you've been using our products a lot recently. We want to send you one. And so they did. And they didn't ask for anything in return. They just said, here you go, try it out, see how it is in your workflow. And then during our conversation with Andre Vidosa, is his name? Andreas?
Andreas,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, Andreas. Okay, yeah. That conversation, I asked him the question. I was like, should I do something with this? Because it had been a few weeks removed from when I got the filter and I was using it and stuff. And he was like, that's your golden ticket, man. You should take it. I was like, how do I even go about taking it? He's like, did you make a video where you talked about the product? And I said, yeah. I was geeking out to somebody about the product in a video, and it wasn't scripted. I was just like, hey, dude, check this out. And he was like, well, how did it perform? Engagement was really good. People were commenting like, wow, I'm gonna have to go check this out.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people in my area use Polar Pro as a filter. Like there's so many other filter brands out there that make fantastic product. Our local photography store doesn't even carry Polar Pro. So when I say the name, nobody knows of it, right? And so I was like, yeah, I did pretty well. And he's like, just send that to them and just say, hey, I love your product. This is a video where I made about it. Here's how it performed. I would like to know if I can potentially work with you. And I did that. I gave a little pitch on the video and I sent it to them. And the social media person replied back. And they gave me the email to the marketing director. And they said, hey, email this person, see if there's any room that we have in our program. And I did the same exact thing. I sent them the link, gave them a similar pitch. And I was like, I align with your products. I love your products. I stand behind your mission statement and stuff like that because I really do. Like it's all about adventure, and it's just the rest is history. I've gotten I own 5 filters from them, but I've only paid for one. And so they have sent me products, and I was a part of a release product, or I was going to be, but my daughter was being born, so I had to pass on the release. But I got the product after the fact, and I use them every single day.
That's amazing.
I genuinely geek out about their stuff all the time. So like if there's something that you use daily and you love it so much, you learn about the product so much, just talk about it. Emphasize on that. Sony has reached out to me to feature my work before. Sigma, I actually just talked to them recently about like, hey, I love your guys' stuff. Like they finally accepted my message because I pitched them back in November and they never saw it. And then when I replied to their story recently, I was like, I love my lens. They're like, great, we love it. We love seeing your work because they liked my posts a lot recently. But I tagged them every single day.
Wow.
Twice a day, these companies are getting tagged in my posts. So they're seeing my stuff every once in a while.
Yeah.
And then you also have to realize too that there are people running those accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when preparation meets opportunity, great things happen.
Yeah,
That's
so
it.
it definitely does.
That's awesome. Are you planning on doing any YouTube videos or something like that, or just short form content?
I have been doing more YouTube videos recently. I had this goal at the beginning of this year to post 1 video per week, and having a growing family has made that a little bit more difficult. But that's not the primary reason why. I think it's actually been myself. I've been so caught up in making my short form content that I neglected making long form content. And I started noticing recently that although I do have a loyal fan base, not as loyal as it could be in terms of like being able to bring them off platform and actually do something with them. Right. And I think YouTube is definitely going to be my long game. I'll still post short form content, don't get me wrong, but I'm pushing harder on YouTube and posting 1 video per week And a lot of the content I've made has been coming from the community on Instagram, questions, pain points, stuff like that. And then some of it's stuff I just want to make because I just want to make it. And those usually don't perform very well. But it's like, okay, I at least did the exercise, got the repetition in. But yeah, right now I've been pretty consistent once a week.
In terms of your cross-platform workflow, could you see yourself combining the two in the sense that you'll film a YouTube video, a long form video, and then like maybe cut that up into clips and use that as Instagram content?
Yeah, I actually have thought about doing that here recently with one of my videos, and I just haven't gone around to actually breaking it down and cutting it up and stuff like that. But I really do think there's a lot of value in it because, again, all about efficiency. Like if I film one video, but I can spread it across multiple mediums, why not do that? And I do cross post my short form content to all 3 platforms. It's just Instagram has been the most successful. And here recently, YouTube, I had one video that went not viral, but it got a lot of traction and it got a ton of traction on Instagram. And I gained over 500 subscribers. But the thing I dislike about YouTube is that it's so segmented of an audience. Like I have just over 2,000 subscribers, but the majority of them watch short form content only. So now I'm having to fight against a wave to get more subscribers to watch the long form and build my audience on that side. I think that's a really big struggle for YouTubers. So I've even considered stop posting short form content on YouTube unless it directly relates to my long form video.
Right. Yeah. I know they added this feature a while back where you can link a short form piece of content to a long form piece of content.
Yep. I learned that recently from Think Media. They did a podcast with the media person from Dave Ramsey show. Yeah. And he said they use that strategy where they'll take the best performing videos, cut it up and turn it into short form content and they link it back to the long form video.
Yeah, that's literally what I do.
We do that with these podcasts as well.
Yeah, it's a great when I realized that, when I saw that I was like, what have I been doing this entire time?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you use any scheduling apps or distribution apps to distribute to all the platforms, or do you do it all organically per platform?
I do it all organically.
Wow.
I have used the business suite for Meta to try and schedule it, but it stopped working recently where it wouldn't even upload my video. So I stopped doing that.
It's very glitchy.
Yeah, it's very glitchy, but I lock myself out of my social apps for like 6 to 8 hours a day so I can be productive. And so if I don't have my post ready by the time it locks, I'm like, okay, well now I have to wait. So I don't use any schedulers. I just get on the app, post it, get off the app immediately. And then I'll check back in like an hour or two to reply to comments.
Have you ever found a significant difference in like reach or performance between the times that you have scheduled and the times that you've posted like organically?
No, I haven't noticed anything really different. I have noticed differences in time though. So I don't post during the time that Instagram says my followers are most active a few times, and those have led to viral videos. It's not every time, but my viral video that hit 3.2 million, I posted at 9:30 in the morning when I would normally post at like 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whatever. But when I schedule things, I didn't see any difference because I'm picking out like the audio and stuff and doing my captions and everything.
Yeah.
So I don't think that actually drives any difference. I know a lot of people think it does, but I've never seen it.
It's just like right place, right time, I think. If you just literally ride the wave or hop on the wave of like a certain trend with the song at the right time, it can take off, but it's not like a rule. Right?
There was also a time when it did matter, back when the apps were more chronological. And now that it's more performance based and algorithmic, I don't think it matters as much. I think before it was like if you posted at 3, then everybody would see it at 3. And if all your audience was on at 3, then post at like 2:30, 2:45.
And so did you say that the one time that you posted, or usually post during the times that your followers are not active or not the most active?
Yeah, so right now I think around noon is when I have like 67,000 followers active or something. But at 9 a.m. it's like 59,000. So it's like, okay, that's negligible in my mind. Like there's a difference of 8,000 people between 9 and 12 p.m. It doesn't matter. Just get it out.
Yeah.
Obviously like there might be some right place, right time kind of scenario, but I can post at 5 o'clock at night, and it doesn't make any difference, because what I've noticed with my viral videos is that the first day it gained a little bit of traction, but the second day is when it blew up.
Yes, I
Second
have
day
been
is when it
noticing that.
spiked.
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting.
yeah, I mean, I gained 10,000 followers the second day that viral video was posted, but the first day it was like 5,000. So it spiked and it kept going up from there.
Yeah.
So no, it's just post when you can. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't matter. And everybody's in a different time zone. Like people in Australia, for instance, I'm going to pick on Ben here. He posts at like 7 o'clock in the morning, my time, but it's nighttime for him. But the majority of his audience is in the United States. So it's like, that makes sense.
So that's strategic.
It's strategic, but also it's just get it out when you get it out. Don't think too deep on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
remove the bottlenecks that can stop
barriers.
you from getting at the barriers.
Yeah.
That's it for sure.
We have just one more question regarding your goals next year, and your vision for the future. So looking ahead, what are your goals for the next year as you aim to turn your part-time content creation into a full-time career? And how do you plan to make sure that you continue to be sustainable in your business while maintaining that work-life balance that you've achieved?
So the next year, I actually challenged myself starting in June. I'm giving myself 12 to 18 months to potentially go full time. And my entire emphasis on this has always been having the choice to do it. So I'm not saying I'm going to quit my job in 12 to 18 months. So if my boss sees this, please don't think that. But I want the choice. Everything I've done up to this point in the last 5 years has been to build a foundation that allows me to do those, to have the choice to do what I want to do. So in the next 12 to 18 months, I want to get to a point in my revenue where I can replace my job, but I don't have to replace my entire income. We're a frugal household. We don't need a lot of money. And so I have this target in my mind of what I want to hit as far as revenue, to where I can start having that conversation. And so the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to keep doing the top priority tasks I have to do every single day, which is publishing my marketing, publishing my content. And then the next thing I really need to be better at is marketing. I feel like I am not a strong marketer because I'm not a salesperson like my parents. Both my parents are career salespeople. And I don't like it as much, but I need to try and find a way where I can be more organic about it and more genuine about it, so people don't think I'm just trying to grab a bag and run away. Like I'm actually wanting to design things that help people. And so this workshop that I'm hosting, my first cohort tomorrow night, actually, I want the people in that cohort to walk away from this and actually have more information and more clarity than they did going into it. If I can do that, I've done my job. And I want to be able to replicate that over and over and over again, to the point where I'm helping people for a living, not just selling something.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather help people get paid to do that than go design something for a CEO that I don't even know very well.
Right.
Like all I know is he drives a Tesla, and I don't like Teslas. So like I want my dream job to be helping people, and to stay true to that, my content's going to remain authentic all the way through. I'm never going to say yes to a brand deal if I don't have creative control. And I'm going to keep designing my digital products and reiterate on them and reward the people who purchased them in the past. So one method I've done is when I reiterated, the people who purchased it previously got it for free. Because to me, it's like, you took a bet on me, a very big bet. This product could have sucked. So to reward you, I'm going to give you the next one for free. And that has really solidified a lot of people's opinion on my products, because it's like I stand behind them and I want to reward you for standing behind them as well. And so that has helped me drive more people to that product. For my workshop, I don't know how I'm going to iterate on it, but I do know that I want to drive as much value as I can, not to just help people grow on social media, but to help them understand what work-life balance means. We have this weird perception of what time management means. I want to try and help rewrite that script and help people understand, like, it's not necessarily as difficult as you think it is. You just have to really work your way towards it, and it's not going to be overnight. So that's what I want to build my business on, is helping people live their life.
And it sounds like you've got a lot of applicable techniques that you do this in your own life, so you can truly speak from your own experience.
Yeah, and my wife actually goes back to work from maternity leave this week. And she used to be a full-time worker, but now she's going back part-time. And the reason why that she did that, and I'm going to call her out and praise her here because she's awesome, but she wants to go back to work part-time because she wants more time with family. And that's my big driver. It's like, I want more time with my family. I have aging grandparents, like a lot of people, and I just want to be able to spend more time with the people I care about. And that's what my wife chose to do. And the only reason why she was able to do that is because we built ourselves up financially to where we can have those kinds of choices. Like, we have very little debt, we have very little overhead, and I'm able to invest my money into this business to help other people build a similar foundation to their lives, to where they can have choices. And the last choice that, or not the last choice, the last reason that she had is because she sees the value that I have in this business, and she wants to give me more time to run it. Because for the last couple of years, from her job to traveling to being pregnant, because she was very sick throughout her entire pregnancy, I took care of the house, I took care of the chores, I took care of the pets, I took care of our garage being built. I did everything that I could to keep us afloat, and I also took care of her. And so she sees that I've put a lot of effort into this, and she wants me to have more time put into this business because she knows that I want to help people. And I mean that in the most genuine way possible. Like, she's helping me help people, and I'm still carrying a lot of weight on my shoulders, but she's also going to take some of that weight off of my shoulders so that way I can focus on it.
Wow, you guys are truly a team. I love that.
and everything's temporary. You know, like, eventually once our
Exactly.
daughter is a little bit older, you know, my wife would go back to work full time and be no problem. Like, we look at something like this as like a phase. Like, it's not it's not forever. And you know what? I could fall flat on my face next week. I could decide that this is not going to work for me and I can do something different. But being comfortable with the ambiguity, that's what's going to keep me going.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Really well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we should, before we wrap up, I'd love to hop into a quick hot seat section, rapid fire. See if we can remember some of the ones we've asked our previous guests, because I think you'd be a really good person for this.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, here we go. So, Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
No questions asked.
Camera or iPhone?
Camera.
Mirrorless camera or GoPro?
Mirrorless.
All the way. Delegate your socials or do it yourself?
Do it yourself.
Carousels or Reels? Because I know you do both.
Carousels.
Ooh.
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Quick reason why?
Because that's where the art actually is. Like, I showed you the process, but I want you to appreciate the art. And, you know, that's why I like them more. I put a lot more effort into my carousels than I do my reels.
Wow. It's no wonder the second photographer on our podcast answered carousels over reels.
Yeah.
Early mornings or late nights?
Ooh. Early mornings. I can survive on 3 hours of sleep and drive across country. I've done that before.
Whew.
Hire an editor or edit yourself?
Edit myself.
Yeah. Do you think that long term you're going to try and keep that up, or is it going to be like an overarching point?
I'm going to keep that up as long as I can. I love having control over what I put out.
Yeah, I feel you.
Beer or liquor?
Beer. Yeah, easy.
Favorite type of beer?
I really like pale ales. I'm not much of a beer drinker anymore. I actually stopped drinking alcohol like almost 2 years ago. So I'll have like a beer every once in a while, but I really like pale ales and amber ales.
Nice.
Nice.
I like IPAs a lot.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Favorite team sport?
Football.
Football. To play or to watch?
To watch. I've played about every sport imaginable except for basketball, but I like watching sports more than playing them now.
Favorite food?
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Nice.
True Italian.
Yes.
And then since you're a car guy,
Favorite car?
Toyota Supra.
Would that be your dream car if you had a pick?
Yeah, actually, I have a dream garage. I have 2 of the 3 cars I want to own, and the Supra is the last one.
all right, well, that's all we got for you today.
Yeah, Joe, thanks so much for your time and just opening up about your life, your business, and how you're managing things. I hope that this is very valuable to all of our listeners, and seeing yourselves in a very similar position. If you have a full-time job, if you have a family, if you have other responsibilities and you want to step into that creator role, Joe's a great example of what's possible on how you can manage it yourself. And there's some really great lessons on sustainability and workflow that you can implement to make it happen and make it a reality for yourself.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today with us.
We'll put links to your socials down below. Go and check Joe out. Check out his content. Leave him a comment saying that you ran across him through our podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this for so long, and so there's a lot of things I don't really open up about on my socials. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk more about other parts of my life. This has been great.
Of course,
Of
man.
course.
Yeah, I know it's taken a while for this conversation to happen, but worth the wait. And I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, part of it was because I knew you had a new baby, and I'm sure you had your hands full.
Yeah, I got my hair cut for the first time in 3 months just for this call.
I was going to say, you look really clean cut. I thought you were going to be all like...
Thank you. No, my wife cut my hair. She's like, you have a podcast and your workshop next week. We got to cut your hair.
That's it. Awesome, man.
Good luck on your first workshop. Hopefully it goes well.
Thank you. I'm excited for it. It's small, but I'm okay with it. It's a start.
It'll be good practice.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's the right mindset. All right, Joe. Thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye.